hold my tongue never. I say what I feel, look you in the eye, never ran, never will. Hold my own destiny, both hands on the wheel. In the darkness they found light, so at the top of your lungs scream, this ain't life. So when they move left, you move right, you move right. Hold my tongue never. I say what I feel, look you in the eye, never ran, never will. Hold my own destiny, both hands on the
Welcome back to LUDE Presents Rabbit Holes. Um, we've had a lot of guests on this week, so I just want to kind of make it easier on my head. We're just going to talk like random pop culture stuff, and we've got the right person for it. So I'm going to add to the show right now, Nicholas, and he's got a podcast, and tell us a little bit about that, sir. Welcome to the show.
Hi, I'm one of the three guys on Pop Culture Roulette. We talk about we have a little ad that we made where we talk about all the news that oh man, I'm just basically what it comes down to is that anything that we think is interesting, we declare it pop culture and talk about it. So we talk about sports. We do talk a lot about Marvel and DC kind of falling apart and how much we wish DC would be better, but they can't get out of their own way sometimes. And
Uh, I will I've just I've lost interest in both of them, to be honest. I feel like there's just too many at some point, you know?
yeah, I mean, I will say, I mean, I'm a Marvel fanboy, so I'm in for all of it. But there is definitely a time where it's like, this is just too much.
I mean, yeah, that's I can't even keep up with, the movie and then the second, third, fourth, and then there's a prequel, and then you know what I mean? They just make
Well,
franchises out of them, and I can't keep track of them.
right. I mean, the movies are easier to keep track of because there's only a couple of them a year. It's when they start adding in all the Disney Plus stuff
Yeah,
and making it where like right now, like you don't have to watch any of the Disney Plus stuff, but I feel like as time goes on, especially with some of the announcements that they've made with like the Thunderbolts movie that's coming out, where most of the characters seem to have been coming from the Disney Plus series.
hmm
They're like at some point, if you didn't watch the Disney Plus stuff, you're just gonna be lost. And I do think that will be a problem for Marvel in the future.
yeah, that's some vision on that, for you to
Well,
break it down like that.
and I mean it's so weird because I mean I'm involved with a couple other podcasts. I guest on like 80s flick flashback
Uh
and
huh.
moving panels. But one of the things I talk about with mine and with moving panels is like there was a time in the 90s or early 2000s where like say Elektra. Like Elektra's not a good movie, right?
Right. Right.
It's not. But I was so happy to have it because it was a comic book movie that I deluded myself into believing that it was good.
Yeah.
Now I go back and watch it and I'm like, oh man, like what was I thinking?
So you were like brainwashed almost.
Well, I think it was just, there was a time when being a comic book nerd was a bad thing.
Right.
When I was in high school back in the 90s, um, you know, other than maybe Batman, like you wanted to kind of hide the fact that you were a comic book fan.
Yeah, it
You
probably
know,
wasn't. It's not something you see on a lot of, I guess, movies, TV shows, whatever.
yeah.
That's not something they show a lot.
I mean, you had Batman for the Michael Keaton movies in the animated series, and then you had the X-Men animated series, but you didn't have a lot of other stuff. So like if you were a comic book fan, in middle school, elementary school, definitely. Well, maybe you could get away with it then because you're a kid, but in high school, like you had to hide that. You couldn't, even being 6'1" and a relatively large man, you know,
It
I was
wasn't worth
bigger. I was bigger than a lot of the guys in high school, but I mean, there's just still a level of nerdiness that I went to that
it. It
it's
made you
it's paying
probably
off for it's
smarter.
paying off for me now.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
made you smarter. So you had mentioned also when we were talking on the intro, the Weird Al movie, and you had a long discussion about it.
Yes.
So I didn't know anything about it until I saw the like the Ask Me Anything post about it. and I saw it the other day pop up on the advertisements on like the home screen, and I clicked on it, but I didn't get started. So I'm intrigued. Tell me and tell my audience about that.
All right, so the Weird Al movie is it's they introduce it as like the totally true biopic of the story of Weird Al.
Okay.
Which you pretty quickly figure out is not at all accurate. Um, but it's exactly what you should get out of a Weird Al movie. His whole career has been taking other people's songs and parodying them, making them
Right.
funny. So
Right.
he's taking other bands' parody biopic movies and parodying them. So you get a little bit of like Walk the Line and Bohemian Rhapsody and Rocket Man and all of the stuff. So I mean, there's a scene like because his real life is boring. Like he's
Yeah.
not like I mean he's funny, and I've been a big fan of his since the '80s. I think I was at the right age when he hit. So
No, I
really,
was I was a fan too. So I mean, I'm like like 10 years behind you, I think, and I was a fan of that. So
yeah. So it is a matter of sorry about that.
no, you're good.
My cat has decided that she wants to join in the fun.
Hey, audience members might not like it, but like I'm a cat man too. I know people don't like cat men. My wife
Well,
kind of really turned me into it, but
I have 2 dogs, 2 cats, and 2 rabbits, and I've got the 2 dogs sequestered in the bedroom with the sleeping wife, and the one cat is like, "Yay, it's time to play because the dogs aren't going to torture me."
yeah.
Um,
Oh gosh, they sleep all day in hiding, and then they come out at night.
yeah. So all right, anyway, but so Weird Al, you know, so you didn't get it, you don't get a straight story. I mean, I don't want to ruin it since you haven't seen it for you, but I mean,
Right.
it's a
So I guess
parody. It's a
so that
parody.
you've got to go into it thinking it's a parody. You can't think it's like
Yeah, because
anything.
I mean, well, a couple minutes into it, there's a scene where his father beats the crap out of a door-to-door salesman,
Yeah.
and you're like, "Wait, what?" But then you realize, like, I mean, because like I said, like the story that like I've always known is that like he bought or his first accordion came from a door-to-door salesman, and then
Hmm.
his parents were actually very supportive of his career. In the movie, like they are like anti, everything, and like it's just so it takes like the stuff from like the beginning of Walk the Line and amps it,
Okay.
or the unsupportive parents, the unsupportive record label, the
I don't
you
know. The
know
more you talk about it, I mean, it actually is a pretty cool concept for a movie that I don't think is much of out there. It'd be a cool
well,
watch, I think.
yeah, I mean it is really funny, and the fact that it's free, like you can watch it, like
Yeah.
you don't have to it makes it even better. Um,
I mean, why
but
can't they just make it all free? Like, I would live with the advertisements if all TV. I didn't have to choose the service and pick this package, that package, whatever. Just I'll pay all the commercial money you want and watch all the commercials. Just give it to me at a cheap price.
well, see, they used to do that. That was called broadcast TV.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
um, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think part of it's just that I can deal with commercials to a point, but streamers really need to figure their nonsense out. Because when you're watching a whatever service and you see the same ad 6 times in a row,
Yeah.
you know, I
That's
do I
that's
do think
everything
they're
though. Well, maybe
yeah
that's the thing of the past. Maybe that's why that AdSense stuff is so big now.
yeah. I mean, I don't know. I see it's something that we have talked about a lot on my podcast that there's just entirely too many streamers right now. I
Yeah.
do see a day where I mean, you kind of see it now with Peacock kind of consolidating or Disney kind of consolidating. I wonder if they're going to start buying each other up and just become one bigger streaming package, which
I
will
guess.
either make them more expensive or
Yeah, it becomes the direct TV versus Dish Network thing in the past. That was like they were the only two. You remember
right.
that?
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. I mean, I don't know. I do wonder how much longer, just network TV in general, like your over the air like channels can exist in the
I don't
world that
I
we
don't think
currently
they
have.
can. I don't think they can. Um, at least the way, unless they move to like a virtual world, because that nobody watches it. I mean, maybe
Yeah.
like doctor's offices and things, you know?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I know like when it comes to like live sports, like sometimes you're kind of, stuck into the, flipping
Right.
over the live, the
Yeah.
regular over the air stuff. But
Right.
I don't know. Once this stuff gets better, I mean, as we go and we get further and further along, it's only going to get. I mean, I think we're in for a little worse before it gets better.
Yeah. Well, like you
Um,
said, I mean, anymore, I don't watch anything live. I watch sports live. I don't watch anything else live. Everything my wife and I watch is recorded, and we fast forward through commercials. You know?
yeah. Well, I mean, 5 years ago, the wife and I cut the cable, so we
Yeah.
only have streamers or what we can get over the air and the antenna.
Hmm.
So, except for sports, I don't really have the. I mean, I can if I am desperate, can turn on the regular TV, but I don't even like the other than to find the Packer game. I don't. It's
So I'm actually a Packers fan too in the NFL.
okay.
What
Well,
happened?
so we can commiserate together there then.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest with like the as big as fantasy football got on the Red Zone channel. I actually unfortunately lost like my love of like the one team anymore. I like the Packers, I like the Steelers, but then I kind of root for whoever my fantasy football players are, you know?
I mean, a lot of people are like that these days. I mean,
Yeah.
I think the longer I live in Wisconsin, the more I become a Packer fan. I didn't grow up here, so it's kind of, but it's a whole nother world here than it is in any of the other states that I've lived in when it comes to football or at least or professional football. I mean,
Right.
when I lived in Florida, there's college football, but you
Yes.
know, but I don't know. I don't know what happened to the Packers. And, I you still have one of the best quarterbacks in the league, if not maybe, top 10, top 20 all time.
But I
So,
haven't got to watch him. Is he still that good? Because his numbers don't
not
look that good.
no, but he doesn't have an offensive line right now, so it's really hard to say it's all his fault.
Okay.
I mean, he I will say that my biggest complaint with Aaron Rodgers right now is that going into the season, you knew that you didn't have Devontae Adams.
Hmm.
You knew that you had a generally speaking new receiving core.
Yeah, clearly.
You chose not to go to training camp and do nothing in the preseason. And then in the first game, your complaint is that these guys aren't running the routes and they don't know where they should
He's
be.
never worked with that team.
Right. You've never worked with them. How do you think? Like, do you think Jordan Love maybe is the quarterback of the future? Who knows?
Hmm.
But he can't do what you can do? Like, you know, there's very few men in the NFL who've ever been able to do what you can do.
But maybe he
And
can run that offense better than he can.
yeah, I don't. I mean, at this point, I've got a friend who's a much bigger Packer fan than I am. In fact, one of the other guys on Pop Culture with me, and he thinks it's time to bench Rodgers maybe for the season and see what we got out of Jordan Love.
I think that would
Either
be a great idea because you know if you need to make a move, you need to make it now because that guy's going to become a free agent here shortly, isn't
right,
he?
either to trade Rodgers to a team that wants to make a run for that last year or two, or to see what you can trade Jordan Love for, because clearly you need to rebuild for the next year.
I
You
mean,
know?
unless Jordan Love, I think you give Jordan Love the rest whenever the season's deemed over. I think that's his tryout, and if he's good, you sign him long term and you trade Rodgers.
Yeah, that would be it. Or as we learned the last 2 years, the only thing better than Rodgers is an angry Rodgers.
Yeah, true. I don't think they're out. That's why I said it that way. I don't think they're out, but they better
No,
figure
because
it out
they're in a the NFC is quite weak this year.
quick. Hmm.
So I mean, if they can, because they have the talent. I mean, going into the season, I looked at the schedule and I went, "Well, this is another 13-3 year, maybe 12-4." So to see them do what they've done the last couple of weeks, it's kind of like, what is going on?
Yeah, I'm on board. So that's that's what I like about this show. We went from Weird Al Yankovic, and we learned that if you go into the movie with parody on your head, in your mind, it'll be good. That's what I'm gonna do.
Right. You know, if you think it's going to be a serious biopic, then man, you are going to be
And then
really really
we became
confused.
yes, but we became temporary general managers for the Green Bay Packers for a second, but they
Oh,
ended up taking over too quick. We didn't make our.
yeah. Well, you know, everybody's a great general manager until they actually get the job.
Well, how about the guy with the Raiders? What happened to him? Mayock. You know, he went from
Uh,
like ESPN guy and he got the job, and now that they don't have like very limited number of draft picks ever from his like 2 or 3 years.
I don't know what's going on with the Raiders, but I mean, I just know that franchise is a mess right now.
They always are.
Well, I mean, I think that Al Davis is one, or no, he's passed it. Whatever Davis is
Mark.
running that team, Mark
Yeah.
Davis, Mark Davis, Jerry Jones, Dan Snyder, um, they're just terrible owners. Like I hate the Cowboys with a passion,
Yeah.
and I think so I love that Jerry Jones wants to believe that he's the general manager because I think he hates the Cowboys as much as I do.
Is he really the general manager?
He claims he is. I mean, his son-in-law might be running the team now just because of his age, but
I mean, just if somebody at that age, I don't think they'd be able to do the things that that person needs to do. You know?
well, I mean, clearly since he ran Jimmy Johnson out of town, he doesn't know what he's talking about anyway. Um,
I see.
you
I
know,
don't. I think Mike McCarthy is a good coach, so I don't think it's his fault in any way, in my opinion.
I don't think McCarthy is a good coach.
No.
No, because I think well, look at what the Packers did. They got rid of McCarthy, brought
Yeah.
in LaFleur, and then went 3 years of 13-3 with essentially the same roster. Because McCarthy's proved it down in Dallas. He doesn't know how to use a running back. Because Aaron Jones was on the roster when McCarthy was the coach. Zeke Elliott was on the roster when McCarthy showed up.
Mm-hmm.
Zeke is now a ghost.
I hate to say it, but I think that's age. I just don't think that. I don't think a running back can last that long anymore.
Well, that is true in the way the NFL goes anymore. You
Yeah.
know,
I mean, I
you
can't
don't
like.
get the
So I talk about how many plays in an NFL game would you make it before you were either a broken limb or concussed? How many plays?
myself.
Yeah, if you were in an NFL game
One,
right
one,
now,
one.
see, I agree. I'd probably last one play.
Yeah,
I'm not
one.
claiming I'd last any more than that. No way.
Yeah, no, I would get I would
Imagine
get
like a
destroyed.
350-pound defensive lineman running and falling on top of you.
Oh yeah, but I mean, even at that, I mean, with the Cowboys, you've got Tony Pollard and you've got a couple other guys, and he just he coasted with Aaron Rodgers when Aaron Rodgers was truly at his prime, and
Okay.
now he's coasting with Dak Prescott, who is, to put it mildly, overrated. Uh, you
I
know,
wish I have a diehard Cowboys fan that I try to get to come on here, but he's made numerous, you know, disregards of all pleads. So he can come on here and defend the Cowboys one day, but I would agree with your statement.
yeah. I mean, I think the Cowboys right now are winning almost in spite of McCarthy. But at the end of the day, when it comes time for the coach, when the coaching really matters in the postseason,
Yeah.
he's gonna make a mistake that costs the Cowboys. His
All right.
clock management, his play calling, like the Cowboys have a very talented team. I mean,
They do.
they've got a great defense. I mean, I hate them, but I will say, like, I mean, Dak Prescott is not a bad quarterback. I just don't think he's near as good as everybody says he is.
Well, Parsons is from my school, so I truly think he's going to be like one of the greatest defensive players of all time. That's my opinion.
Oh,
He's
yeah,
awesome.
yeah, absolutely. The Cowboys have always had, unfortunately, good football teams, which has probably made it why I hate them so much.
Yeah.
But I mean, you just look at McCarthy's history with the Packers. Outside of that 1 year where he won the Super Bowl,
Yeah, looking
You
back
know,
on it, I'll have to look back because what you're saying does make sense.
I mean, you look back at one of the Seattle Green Bay playoff games, and there was multiple opportunities early in the game to good run the ball and possibly run the score up like 21-0.
Hmm.
And instead of making the bold choice and going for it in fourth and short or fourth and one situations, he just kicked a field goal. So instead of being up 21-0 in like the first quarter, early second quarter, and
9
really just putting your
or
foot
6.
down,
Yeah,
right? You let Russell Wilson and Pete Carroll get back in the game. You can't give those guys, you can't give Pete Carroll the opportunity to do what he knows how to do.
yeah.
And
And you see that's a perfect
like
example right there. Look, Russell Wilson's gone, and now he's still doing good up there.
right. I mean, and I think that's why Belichick has been as successful as he has been for as long as he has been, because when he has the opportunity to put his foot on your neck, he's going to.
Right. Yeah. It's not
You
a
know,
fun locker room, probably.
no, I mean it's and the big problem with the Packers had always been the second half. They get a
Yeah.
big lead in the first half, and then they're like, "Well, we got a big lead. We don't have to try as hard in the second half."
And
And
I know what a lot of my team's games are like that.
yeah,
Either.
well, and I mean, John Madden, one of the smartest things he ever said is that the prevent defense only prevents you from winning.
Man, John Madden. Oh, how much did he actually have to do with the? Do you have any idea how much he actually had to do with the video game, or was he just a face for the game at that point when it first
I'm
started?
quite positive that they were just like, we need to put a face on this game,
Okay,
and he was the most famous non-player at the time.
coach. Yeah, yeah,
Somebody who was affordable,
yeah.
and
Hey, it
uh, and
worked out.
then
That's for sure.
and then it just worked out. I'm sure they. I don't even know if he came into the office to
Do anything.
okay the game. Like they were
Yeah,
just like, we're putting your name your name staying on the game. Here's a check.
yeah,
Hey,
yep.
do you
Oh
want a
man.
copy? Sure.
Yeah, that really worked out. So let's go back to we kind of got. I like sports. Thank you for doing that. Perfect for the show. But let's go back to pop culture because I don't get to talk about that enough.
Okay.
My wife and I went to the movies a while back, and we had our best time we've ever had at the movies in the last like 10 years, and it was for the movie Nope. Have you seen that or talked about that?
I have not. It is really high on my list to watch,
Okay.
because I loved Get Out.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah. See,
uh,
that's I wish you would have seen it because I don't want to say anything because it's like anything I say will kind of ruin it for you.
yeah.
Um,
I I mean I don't. I mean, I can kind of put two and two together on the trailer, and
yeah.
and I'm I've all and I often I feel like Jordan Peele does a better job of keeping some of the surprises from being in the trailer. I don't feel like, I mean, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't feel like the trailer that we got really give you an indication of what happens in that movie.
It didn't. Nope.
Okay.
It was great.
Yeah, because I mean, I
Yeah.
know that's the problem with a lot of trailers these days, is that they give everything away.
So I guess with that being said, like the way I mean, if you can imagine the way Jordan Peele makes those movies, like we're talking, like, is there any other like type of movies or film that are like that out there? Because that's like those are some of the best movies we've watched in the last few years. Like is that like a
Yeah,
genre? What do they call that?
well, I mean, if you want to look into the more indie horror stuff,
Okay,
I mean, obviously he's not indie because he has a massive budget behind him, but
right.
there's some really good indie horror movies out there. Um, I mean, a lot of I don't necessarily get into the Blumhouse stuff as much, but I know Jeremy, one of the guys I do pop culture with, he's really big into horror, which is why we do the Halloween thing.
Yeah.
Um, I'm trying to think of what some other stuff that would be like Get Out,
Where I guess
because
like to that like indie film stuff. Where's that big? Like, is there a platform that you can watch that on?
You gotta. I mean, that's the nice part about the streamers is
Yeah.
that you can find it now where back in the day you just had to be hope that the guy who ran the local video store was a bigger video nerd than
Right.
and actually actually wanted to carry some of the weird stuff that you heard about. I
Yeah.
don't know
You
how.
just mean like the non-major production movies that
Right,
you find.
the stuff that gets overplayed on TV,
Yeah.
on the
Gotcha.
TV ads and stuff like that.
I know what you
um I mean, I know like Netflix has done a lot of really good like Netflix originals.
mean.
Um,
Yeah, I do like
the
some of the. My wife loves some of the Netflix stuff. She watches that a lot.
I've only seen two of the three of them so far, but Fear Street um,
Oh
was
yeah, I saw those. I didn't see them, but I
the
know which ones you mean.
yeah, those the first two that I watched were pretty. I mean, it was like
They're
Fear
the different
Street,
time
like
eras, right?
yeah, different, and it was kind of the three of them are kind of interconnected.
Okay.
Um, Peacock seems to have a lot of really interesting stuff.
I've not
Uh,
had Peacock yet. I have not had it yet.
Yeah, I mean, for the price, I would say that one. I mean, feel like I'm being a shill for Peacock right now. I'm not. Like, I don't. I have no
Hey,
advertisers.
no,
You
you're
know.
allowed. Yeah, you're allowed to. I ask people. Okay, so perfect little
Yeah.
segue. I got away from it, but I'll do it. So, if you could have any sponsor and you had a neon sign in your background of your office right now, like who's your favorite brand that you would want to be your sponsor?
Oh, I mean,
It could be any.
I would say probably Marvel, just
Okay.
because I would hope that would give me all sorts of behind the scenes access and early access
Yeah.
and.
Yeah, you could just, you'd just be like the go-to reviewer for all things Marvel.
I mean, if for the people who have been long term listeners of my podcast, they probably think I am sponsored by Marvel the way I talk them up.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, no, okay, okay. So if you talk like save me for Marvel, like basically what I'm saying is, um, like I got away from it. I haven't watched it. How do I get back into it? Like where do I start?
um, I would say
Because I've got kids all ages and they'll love to watch those movies. So like where
right.
would I start if I wanted to enjoy it?
Figure out. I mean, not figure out. Stick to the main timeline. Um, like I mean, if you stick to whatever the main Avengers are, like
Okay.
you don't have to watch the Disney Plus stuff. I
Okay.
mean, there's some of that stuff that's really enjoyable. The Netflix stuff is now on Disney Plus, but none of that
Okay.
stuff really, starting with Iron Man in '08.
Yeah, because
If
I
you
remember
just
seeing those. Yeah.
yeah, you stick to those movies, and then like you can probably even ignore like the Eternals or I mean, even though it's really good, Shang-Chi at this point you could ignore.
Okay.
Um, but like Avengers, um, I would say like Endgame Infinity War and Endgame did something that no other movie I feel like has ever been successful at.
What is
Where
that?
where like when you get like a movie that they advertise like they've got like 20, 30 different big name stars in it,
Right.
and most of the time that movie just ends up being a mess.
Yeah, because they're really very
There's just
limited acting scene.
right. So you have a 2.5 to almost 3 hour movie for Endgame and then or Infinity War and Endgame, where they have so many named characters, costume characters that actually work. Like like yeah, Robert Downey Jr. is probably gets more screen time than anybody else,
See, that's
but
why I'm asking where do I start? Because when I tried to watch those movies and I saw so many different people, like I had no idea what was going on and I couldn't
right,
finish it, you know?
understandable. Which is where like I would say just do a quick Google search of MCU timeline.
Yep.
And then because at the beginning the movies were sequential.
Yeah,
It
because
was
I
Iron
remember
Man,
like
Iron Man 2, and by the
yep,
time you got to Avengers, like all those movies were, as long as you saw Iron Man and Captain America and Thor, when you saw
okay,
Avengers, it made sense. And
okay,
then between Avengers and Age of Ultron, it pretty much stayed the same way. But somewhere between Age of Ultron and Endgame, they started getting a little bit loose with the timeline.
Okay. See, that's
where
that's
they
what I thought, because that's what I don't like, where you can't.
yeah.
I hate being confused. You know.
Right. So like Captain Marvel when it came out technically should have been like the second movie that you watched because it took place in the 90s.
Yeah. Yeah. See,
So
that's maybe would it make sense if you watched it that way?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean so I don't have a actually I'm guessing if memory serves like if I you were to go to Disney Plus they might put it in timeline order.
Okay. Yeah, I'll check that
Um
out.
the big problem is that because Disney and Sony are still fighting with each other over who owns Spider-Man, um Spider-Man is not on Disney Plus.
Spider-Man's
And
part of Marvel, right?
yes, back in the 90s, late 80s, mid 90s, Marvel as a comic company was almost bankrupt.
Right.
They almost completely went out of business. And they sold off the TV and movie rights to a lot of characters.
Okay.
Which is why in the late 90s, all of a sudden you got Blade, X-Men, Spider-Man, Daredevil, Elektra, all these characters all of a sudden started hitting the big screen because Marvel was like, we got to get money from somewhere. And if, we're going to retain the publishing rights, but you can have the TV and movie rights, whatever.
So hey, that
And
was a really cool fun fact. Can you name off some of those shows you said again? Like, because I remembered at the end you said Elektra. What else
yeah,
was that movies that they sold off?
well, they sold off Fantastic Four, the Hulk, all of the X-Men.
Yeah, because
Um,
there's so many of those movies. They just cashed
right.
in.
Right, and that's where Marvel was able to um, take some of the more popular characters that were in the comic books, sell them off to Toy Biz or whoever else, and then Toy Biz spun that off into Sony and Paramount and Fox and whoever else,
Right.
so that all of a sudden now Marvel and Stan Lee had an influx of cash to keep making the books.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if they didn't do that, then and they were smart enough to keep some of the characters to themselves. Um, and so like that's where like the argument of was Iron Man an A-list character back then, and now where he is now because of the Robert Downey Jr. And I would say yes. I mean Iron Man because they did cartoon series for him back in the 90s. I mean
Iron Man was never like the the biggest person in the world.
no, but he was never. But when it came to like the Avengers, like as a comic book series, he was the guy who started the Avengers.
Okay.
So
So that
like within the Marvel world, he was one of the most important characters.
okay.
But he as a character, he never got to the level of say Spider-Man or Batman.
Yeah, see,
Or
that's something I was never into, was like comic books and like the series like that. But like I've talked to a few people on the show and now you, but like that is something maybe one day I would look at, because it's pretty cool when you look at the way those things got started. I guess
oh
to
yeah,
read
I
about 'em.
mean
I don't know if I need the comic portion of it, but even to read those stories.
yeah, I mean I have well, I mean, I'm a nerd. I've been a nerd my entire life. It's a
Yeah,
badge I get to wear proudly now. Back in the day, it was But I had
I've never admitted to like being a nerd, but like my wife will probably tell you. And now that I think about it, I might be a nerd.
I guarantee you, my wife would.
Yeah,
Um, in fact, she probably called me that today.
that's awesome. I
But
love.
but so when they sold off all the characters, all of a sudden they had all that money, and now they had the money, and then eventually the books and the money they were getting paid from everybody else, they had the money to do their own thing.
Right.
And so they made Iron Man. And then they showed everybody, well, this is how you make a comic book movie. Like, you know, you don't have to do it exactly like the comic book, but you have to get it close enough that people like the fanboys like me were like, "Oh my goodness, that's how you do it." And then, then all of a sudden they were like flush with money, and then Disney came calling, and we're like, hey, we see something here. Let's buy all of Marvel all together. And then Marvel Disney started going and buying all of their stuff back.
Oh, okay.
Well, the only character they have yet to be able to buy back successfully is Spider-Man. And
Oh, so they
characters,
got the Incredible Hulk and the Fantastic Four and all that stuff.
yeah, when they bought Fox.
Oh, okay.
Well, I'm not sure about Hulk. I think there's still some weird rules with the Hulk. Like they can use
See,
the
the Hulk,
Hulk.
I think, would be a really cool asset. They did it right. But it
Well,
wasn't right since the one in the '80s. That was the right one.
yeah. Well, Hulk is a weird one because they have the right to use the Hulk in any movie they want to. But if they do a Hulk solo movie, they have to produce it with Universal. So
Oh,
they'll have to split the
it's like,
profits.
the parts of the contract or whatever.
Right. So as long as Hulk is just in the Avengers or in Thor or in this, they don't have to pay Universal anything. But if they gave Hulk his own movie, they would have to split the profits with Universal.
That's another little fun trivia fact there. I like that. I like
Um,
those little
same
tidbits.
same thing with Sony. Like Sony can do a Spider-Man movie whenever they want. There's a deal now that um, Marvel gets last rights of like they can say you can and cannot do this, but Sony gets to produce it and put it out and gets all the profits from it. But then Marvel gets to use Spider-Man over in the Avengers movies and Doctor Strange and stuff like that.
Oh, okay.
But that's why Venom and Morbius, those last couple movies that came out, didn't have Spider-Man in them. They made references to Spider-Man, but they didn't have Spider-Man in them because
Venom is a Marvel movie.
yes,
I like Venom a
but,
lot. Those were good.
but it isn't currently in the MCU because Sony is being weird about it.
Okay. Yeah, that's funny
Um,
how you have to know. Like you do. You have to know that. I feel like you have to know the timeline to watch that.
right, and that's where I think, like I said, a little bit ago, I think that's where it's gonna start causing them a problem because nerds like me just inherently know this stuff.
Yeah.
But your average fan, like my wife, who really enjoys it, and we're really looking forward to go and see that new Black Panther movie that's coming
See,
out.
you got the perfect wife then. I mean, you already love it. Now she like enjoys it like it's new to
I
her.
I got her into it. When we first got together, she didn't. I mean, she was like, "Whoa, why can't Batman face Spider-Man?" Well, now she gets it and she understands, and I don't have to, you know, make myself look like a jerk.
No,
Um,
that's cool though. She enjoy I
yeah,
don't.
watch one and she was like, "Wow, this is actually good. Like it's
Yeah.
enjoyable." And it was really helpful that Marvel hired like Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans and Chris Pratt and Chris Hemsworth and Paul Rudd and
I didn't know that. Well, the Paul Rudd movies. See, those are another one. Are those Ant-Man movies in the timeline?
yes,
Okay. See, I didn't really respect the Ant-Man movies when I saw those either. So that's why if I watched it in order, maybe I would. You know?
maybe. Well, that's one of those that like you didn't until Endgame or until Infinity War. You didn't really. Well, no, Civil War because Ant Man shows up in Civil War. Um, but for the first Ant Man movie, you didn't have to see any of the other Marvel movies
Okay.
because they only kind of briefly touched on some Marvel stuff. Like
Gotcha.
there was not a lot of connections. Then he showed up in Civil War, and then so Ant Man and the Wasp was a lot more connected because it was like the fallout from what happened in Civil War.
Right.
So
Right. Yeah. And I'm gonna try that because it makes so much more sense even just hearing that timeline from you. You know?
yeah, so I mean, watching them in order, like I've talked to people who are like, yeah, I just tried to watch Infinity War. Well, but did you watch any of the other movies? No. Well, that's why it didn't make any sense. Like,
Right. Yeah.
there
It's
was
not
there
a
was
bad
like
movie. It's just you don't understand it.
19 movies ahead of that you needed to see.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess that's the way I'm gonna attack that. I don't know when I'll get finished with it, but I'm gonna attack that.
Yeah.
So
No.
what's something else out there in big topic on your show that you discuss? This is interesting.
Yeah. Well, the big debate has been that one of the guys, Justin, he's a bigger DC fan than I am,
Okay.
So he's always trying to support DC, and I will say that the Zack Snyder movies have been disappointing.
All right. So I've got to pause you because I need you to help me because like when my son talks to me about this stuff, this is where I get fuzzy. Okay, so can you give me like the biggest DC stuff so I know what's separate from all the Marvel
Yes,
stuff?
absolutely. So your holy trinity in DC is Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman.
Okay. All right.
That's their big three, and then so from there you've got Flash, Cyborg, Green Lantern, you know, but
So all the
every
characters that kind of go along with that
right,
stuff.
yeah, all the characters. So Zack Snyder entered the DC universe with Man of Steel when he did the reboot of the Superman franchise with Henry Cavill. That movie was enjoyable, but it was really dark. Um, like the Christopher Nolan Batmans, the ones with Christian Bale.
Right. Those I love
Um,
those ones.
yes, those are really good, but they're not part of the current DC universe.
See? Okay, that helps me. I always wondered like
Yeah.
what is going on?
So
How is he
right,
part of this?
that so when Batman re-enters the what they were calling the Snyderverse or the DCEU, that's where Ben Affleck takes over.
Okay, so Ben Affleck's back to the timeline.
Right.
Okay.
So you when they do Batman vs Superman, that movie was I wanted it to be better. That's where I take a lot of crap because I'm always bashing DC, but it's because I want them to be better.
So this most recent Batman, is that part of the timeline?
Um, this is where DC really confuses even me.
See, this is what I hate. This is what I
Yeah.
hate.
And this is where I think Marvel gets it right. Yes, there's so much of it, but
Right.
it's all linked. Like it all fits. It doesn't necessarily come in like the right order, but it
Right.
all fits. You
Because
might have
now they
to
have multiple stories of Bruce Wayne, right?
right. So now with the DC, what they have in the DC world is I don't know if they've settled on a name yet, but it's either the multiverse or Elseworlds.
Okay.
So you're going to have and who I don't even know if this Flash movie that's supposed to come out is actually coming out
That's
because
a weird situation.
that Ezra Miller is
I don't think they can release it if he's in that much trouble.
yeah, I don't see any way. I think you almost have to find an actor that kind of looks like him and then reshoot all the scenes and just
I think they just,
digital
well, I guess, you mean just, would, in that situation, would they have to reshoot every scene or just him there and they'd put him in the scene?
just I think you would just get an actor who can just match
Right.
Ezra Miller's
You don't have
motions.
to have all the other actors and actresses on
Right.
board.
Yeah,
Okay.
you kind of just
I think
motion
that's what you'd
capture
have
it
to do.
in.
You can't
Uh,
release that movie with that guy that's been arrested God knows how many times.
Yeah, and for the things that he's been arrested for too, on top of that.
Yeah, I
But
know they
that's
weren't good. I don't know what.
yeah. Um but yeah, that's where it gets confusing. So they release a Robert Pattinson Batman movie that is in so DC has like Earth 1, Earth 2, Earth whatever.
Yeah.
Marvel has it too, but they've been doing a better job of keeping that straight. But so Robert Pattinson Batman is taking place on a different Earth.
Yeah. See, I'm out. I'm out. I
So
watched
it's
the movie, but I don't want to follow that timeline, you know?
yeah, and that's the thing like movie making wise like that Batman movie was really well done.
Yeah, see, I'll watch Batman just to see a good movie, but I'm not
Right.
going to worry about any other movie in
But
that franchise.
but it was so dark and just it could have been so much better than it was.
One of the guests the other night touched on that, and they said that, and now that, I looked at it, they said that he played a great Batman, but a terrible Christian Bale in that movie.
Yeah, and there's the argument there. Like so you got like Michael Keaton, who was I thought Michael Keaton is one of the best because he was really good at Bruce Wayne and at Batman. Val Kilmer was really good at Bruce Wayne, but not so much Batman.
Okay.
We won't talk about George Clooney. Um,
My
Christian Bale.
brother-in-law would be proud of you.
Christian Bale was pretty good at both. Affleck is okay at both. Robert Pattinson was really good at Batman, but a terrible Bruce Wayne.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
Yeah. So, like it's and so like with this Flash movie, if they ever actually release it, Michael Keaton is back in the play as Batman. So if you
Oh,
want to get confused even more, like
I like Michael Keaton. I might watch it for that, but yeah, I'm not following the whole thing.
but so basically you're gonna have the Ben Affleck Batman in there and the Michael Keaton Batman in there, and then
Oh,
at some
forget it. I'm out.
some
I'm
point,
back out.
and then at some point they might roll Robert Pattinson in there.
Yeah. Nope.
And if you want
I
to
don't
get
like when they go through the different dimensions, like the most recent Spider-Man movie. And
yeah, and then if you want to get even more confused, I don't think that the Joker movie, the one that Joaquin Phoenix did,
yeah,
takes place in either of the universes that we have so far. I think that's a separate universe all in itself.
see, like that movie right there was a great movie. I'll watch those ones that are just nothing to do with the timeline, other characters, blah blah blah.
I I had a real problem with the Joker movie. Okay, I'll
But
say this.
it didn't follow the timeline, right?
No, well, and I don't even care about the
Or like the
timeline.
series.
Yeah, my problem with the Joker movie, I mean, it was very well done, and Joaquin Phoenix deserved the Oscar. But my problem with the Joker movie is that I want my Joker to be bad. I want him to be just chaos incarnate.
Yeah.
I don't want to feel for him.
Right. Right. Okay.
I don't
Yeah.
I don't want him to become, sympathetic.
I
I don't,
understand.
and so like Disney's kind of doing this a little bit too with like Cruella or Maleficent, where they're taking the bad guys and making them, they're humanizing them.
I only saw that movie through my daughter when she watched it when she was young, but I remember thinking, like, isn't this person a bad person? Like,
Right, and that's like Cruella was really good. Emma Stone was really, fantastic in that movie.
yeah,
I thoroughly enjoyed that movie. I thought it was really well done, but at the end of the day, like she's supposed to be this evil, like, just terrible human being, and now I feel for her.
yeah,
Like you've humanized her.
right, right.
I don't want that for my villains. I want when they lose, when the good guy wins at the end of the movie, I don't want to be like, well, come on. I mean,
Oh man, so that's been fun. We talked about the different universes and timelines there. Something that I just thought of that I want to ask you, since you're up to date on your pop culture. What's something that's on the horizon that you're excited for? Like, what is there any kind of series or movie premiere or anything like that you're excited for that maybe we should too?
I mean, I'm excited for the Black Panther movie that's coming out. I don't know when your schedule for releasing these are.
Well, no, just in general, yeah, stuff that
Okay.
I think is gonna be on.
Um, trying to think. I know Black Panther is really exciting.
See, like that one there though. How does that fall in line?
Okay, so with that one, Marvel is doing something a little different because unfortunately Chadwick Boseman passed away.
Right.
Instead of recasting him like James Bond,
Yes.
they just killed that character off.
Okay.
So they're moving the storyline forward without him.
So what's it become now? Not Black Panther.
Well, in the comic books, Black Panther is more of a title than a
Okay.
character. It's not like Steve. Well, Steve Rogers is a bad example. Iron Man, Tony Stark has always been Iron Man.
Okay.
So when Black Panther is Black Panther because his father was Black Panther and his father
Okay. So
was
he's
Black
the
Panther.
leader.
So he's just the leader of Wakanda.
Okay, that
Like
makes
that's
sense.
the the mask that he puts on because he gets the special power and he's the king.
So they
So
can keep that right on the timeline then.
right, they can keep that in the timeline because in the books, like there's been a couple other people because in the comic books, no one ever really dies except for Uncle Ben. You stay dead then, but
So wait,
NERD.
hold on. That's something new to me. I thought like Spider-Man or anybody, Superman, Spider-Man, Batman, like I thought some of the end of the books they died.
Yeah, but they always come back.
Okay. So they don't never die. They just come back.
No, they
That's
might
not real.
like back in the early '90s, they killed off Superman. They killed off Clark Kent. And then, like a couple years later, they were like, "Oh, that was maybe a mistake. Let's bring him back."
How does he get back? He just shows up.
Magic.
Okay.
Um,
All right. So yeah, there we go. Then they die.
he died, and then somebody found a way to bring him back, or he was faking his death, or
Or he was in like
whatever.
a cryo chamber, or something like that.
Yeah, he was just stuck in limbo. He was,
Flavor of the
in
week.
whatever crazy Lifetime movie thing you want to use, they've done it, and found a way to bring him back.
All right. So hey, question for you. I don't know if you're gonna know this one. Just popped in my head, and that's why I love this show. I can ask people these things. So pop culture, you may or may not have seen this show, but it was a show probably 10 years ago now. But it was something to do about people free. It was on Fox, I think, and people freezing themselves and then showing up in the future, or something like that. You have any idea what show I'm talking about?
I mean, my first thought is Futurama.
No. This was like a series.
Oh, okay.
Futurama was a good show though.
I love Futurama.
I
I
don't
mean,
see that on TV anymore. Is it on anywhere?
oh, I'm sure it's on. It's
Because it
on.
used to be one of those, every local TV station had that thing on.
Yeah, you know what? Because it's a Fox thing. It's probably on Hulu somewhere.
Oh, okay. I don't have Hulu. That makes sense.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. I mean, there's been so many. There was a show back in the mid to late '90s, maybe late '90s, early 2000s, called like Cleopatra 2525, where some people
Like a
got frozen.
Stargate. Do you remember the Stargate show?
Yeah, Stargate. I don't remember people being frozen in Stargate, but
No, I don't. I don't remember what this show was. If you didn't see it though, it doesn't matter.
yeah.
Doesn't matter.
Uh,
Like I didn't understand that show. I was hoping you knew about it.
Oh well, I mean, if you remembered the name of it, I probably would.
Don't worry about it. We'll move on here.
Okay, I'm just looking at a list of movies that are coming up. I
Yeah. What
mean,
else you got on there?
well, I mean, obviously, there's a bunch of Marvel and DC
So you're.
stuff.
I guess from this, I take you're bigger into movies than you are to like TV or streaming series or
It
whatever.
really depends. Like, I mean, like What We Do in the Shadows on
Is that
F-
FX?
FX. So I watch it on Hulu. So
So I wanted to watch that. That's a good show.
it is so good.
Okay.
Uh,
So I gotta
um,
watch that one.
if you're into the more random, awkward humor, like
Yeah. Yeah.
what did you feel about The Office?
So I was never a fan of The Office, and I think it's because I never gave it a chance. But
Okay,
I sat down the other night and I watched an episode and I laughed out loud for the first time. And I'm like, I really need to watch more of this.
okay. So like What We Do in the Shadows, it's kind of a mockumentary where like this documentary crew has found a group of vampires living in like Manhattan or Brooklyn.
Okay, I like it.
And these vampires are stuck, like not stuck, but like they still operate like it's like somehow like in the 1800s or 7. Like they're so behind the times,
Okay,
so they don't really understand. And it's so. I mean, there's definitely a lot of awkward humor. It's because it's kind of the
I like it
mockumentary style,
already.
like The Office.
Yeah,
That one was really good. No, I consume a lot of TV and a lot of movies. Um, that's just I consume pop
lifestyle.
culture, which is why my friends wanted to start the Pop Culture podcast, because that's what
Yeah, this is.
when they talked to me, they got stuck talking to me about that.
Yeah, I'm gonna start listening to your show. How many episodes of your show do you have?
We are just put out episode 76.
Okay,
Okay,
cool.
well, but all right. Backstory, real fast.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, we did 101 episodes, and the show fell apart. It just died.
Okay.
For about 2 years,
Oh yeah, things happen.
we rebooted it under a different name, and that fell apart after like 8 episodes.
Okay.
And then for about another year, it was dead. Um, my co-hosting partner Jeremy made some real life changes. I'm really proud of him. He got sober.
Awesome.
And he's been sober now for almost 2 years, and he's really gotten his life back in order.
That's good for him.
And so we relaunched the show, and there's some stuff in the original 101 episodes that we're not necessarily proud of.
Yeah.
We were all in a different place then, so we didn't want to re-release them without major editing, and none of us felt like doing that. So
That
we
makes
just
sense.
we just restarted over at number one.
Okay. That's a cool story though. But yeah, like you said, just better to start
So
from scratch and
so but the inherent problem with the show that we have is that if you go back and listen to an episode from a year ago,
yeah.
we're talking about movies that either just come out or haven't come out yet, and we're just like, oh man, we're so hyped for this, or we're worried about that,
Right.
um, or we're giving you a way too detailed breakdown on an episode of America's Got Talent we just watched.
Hey, but you can rewatch anything though.
Right. So sometimes because we're so topical, it's a little hard to go back and watch and listen to the episodes just
I
because
understand.
but like for Halloween we did themed episodes. So we did we did werewolves, we did cults, we did the devil, and we did Frankenstein's monster.
I love that.
So
I'm gonna listen back. Yeah, I'll listen to something like that because that sounds pretty cool too.
I did like the pop culture history of Frankenstein's monster, where he came from, what he did, what they've done with him in the movies and TV, and then we talked about like our favorite examples.
Yeah, that's
Um,
a pretty good premise. Sounds
yeah.
cool.
So, but that's so that we're kind of transitioning into doing a themed episode like once a month, maybe depending on what's going on. We try to go keep up with whatever's happening
Give
in pop
yourself enough
culture.
material, really.
Yeah. So because the themed episodes like that takes a lot of work because you got to sit down and you got to read through you know hours and hours of Wikipedia and just websites of finding all of the information
Hey, I'm glad
and
you said it because Wikipedia is the best source.
oh yeah, I mean I know people don't necessarily trust it because you can people can change things, but for the most part it's pretty accurate.
I trust it way too much. I'll be honest.
Well, yeah,
I
I
don't,
gotta say I probably do too.
because they catch that stuff so quick. It's so well used, you know.
Right. Yeah. I mean, some of the stuff that's a little more obscure or people can change, like, when they change the owner of the Chicago Bears to Aaron Rodgers. Um, but
What's
I mean
that?
for the most
What's that
um
rumor?
last year when Rodgers beat the Chicago Bears, somebody in the crowd yelled something at him and he stood on the sideline and yelled, "I still own you."
Okay, I forgot about that. Yeah.
And then so immediately somebody went to the Wikipedia page and changed the owner from whoever it is that owns the Bears to Aaron Rodgers.
But yeah, I mean that's hilarious. But in reality, how long did it take to catch that? Like a few minutes?
I mean, it probably got changed back within a day, but
Yeah, I mean I'm sure the screenshots are everywhere though. You can't
oh
take
yeah. But I
that.
mean, for the most part, like if you're researching werewolves, there's not a lot of fake or false information on werewolves. I guess the false information definitely comes more from more recent stuff or whatever's more popular.
Hmm.
So you just have to be and like everything on the internet, you have to take everything with a bit of a grain of salt.
Yeah, and that's I've said it on here. It's all opinions. I mean, nothing we're saying is factual. So don't listen to
Yeah.
anything we do or think it is. It's opinions. You you don't need any trouble that you don't bring on yourself, I guess. Right.
Right.
So yeah, I enjoyed it, man. I think I'm gonna wrap it up here. I gotta get
Okay.
going. But
That's
I
fine. Yeah.
enjoyed having you on, and I'm gonna listen to your show because it sounds like it's a cool premise.
All right.
Uh,
Well, I appreciate it.
when's the next one out? How about that? Like, when's your next release?
We just put out an episode or a couple days ago.
Okay, so it's fresh,
Um,
so I can listen to that one.
yeah, and we'll get pretty in deep in the Weird Al movie on that one.
So I better. Okay, I need to watch Weird Al, and then I can listen to your show.
Yeah, absolutely. We tend to record every Sunday night,
Okay.
unless the Packers are playing. But then, but yeah, we record Sunday night, so whatever happened in the course of the week is probably what we're going to talk about, unless we got a
So
themed episode going on.
Packers are really light up in that area.
Are you down in the Texas area?
Yeah, I'm south.
Okay. Do you know how high school football is on Fridays in Texas?
Yes, yes.
That is like that here on Sundays. If you are not a football fan, grocery shopping Sunday afternoons is your best option.
I understand. Yeah, that's pretty funny. It's like a crazy tailgate for like a college game or something too.
Yes.
It's like everybody's there.
Yep.
Okay, got it. Makes sense. All right. Well, hey, where can they find you? Like, where do you promote? Where do you put your stuff out at?
I do most of my promotion on Facebook, so Pop Culture Roulette. I have an Instagram page that's Pop Cult Roulette because they wouldn't let me have the whole title.
Okay.
We don't do much on Twitter. We have it, but I generally just use it to enter contest.
Okay.
If you want to find us, we're on our webpage. It's mediapodsmash.com. And then you can just check the links on the top. You'll find us up there because
Okay.
Media Podsmash is our hosting company or our hosting podcast. That's our mother podcast, I guess, for lack of a better word.
Gotcha. Makes sense. All right. Cool. Well, hey, I do appreciate it, Nicholas. Look forward to, like I said, getting a listen, and I look forward to watching the Roku movie. Is that the first like big Roku movie?
Pretty much, yeah.
So that's what we learned here tonight. We learned some fun little trivia facts. Enjoyed listening to some of the premise of Pop Culture Roulette. Anyway, thanks, Nicholas. Anyone that listened to this one, thank you. Plenty more coming out. Look forward to the interactions with you. Let us know what maybe you want to listen to, what you want to hear about. All right, take care.
Hold my tongue never. I say what I feel. Look you in the eye, never ran, never will. Hold my own destiny, both hands on the wheel. In the darkness, they found light. So at the top of your lungs, scream, this ain't life. So when